The Stewart article begins on page 325. Notice the nice little figure there on the first page there, which I've adapted here on the board. But I like what Stewart says in the pages that follow, talking about accounting as an interpretive art. Okay, you might think at first blush, those of you who are not accountants, that accounting is a matter of simply putting numbers in one box after having calculated them from other boxes. But actually, it's much more complex than that. Accounting is incredibly complex. So for instance, at the top of the second column of 326, Stewart writes, so Morgan concludes by emphasizing that accountants are always engaged in interpreting a complex reality, partially and in a way that is heavily weighted in favor of what the accountant is able to measure and chooses to measure through the particular schemes of accounting to be adopted. Okay, and on the next page, first column, accounting is more like a photograph. It is taken from a particular vantage point with a particular lens at a particular time for a particular purpose. In a sense, accountants do reflect reality, but accounting is also constitutive and people act on the basis of the picture which is painted. You know, these days, with all of our tech, we can actually actively manipulate photographs to look very, very different than what they originally were. But even apart from that, assuming that one is not manipulating a photograph, depending on the nature of the angle or the lens that is being employed or the chromatic, the veneer that is being employed, you can actually take a true photograph that is telling you the truth, and yet it's truth from a particular perspective. It says something about the situation. That's kind of the way a lot of the time accountants have to approach their tasks. At the bottom, near the bottom of that column, Stewart writes, it is the softness then of accounting numbers that is the reason why managers are so interested in them, for they can manipulate them where they may be motivated to do so. And that's really important. Accounting is not all hard numbers, it's often soft numbers. How is accounting interpreted? Well, let's think about accounting as interpretation. If you think about your standard balance sheet, okay, everybody knows what the three financial statements are? What are the three core components of a company's financial statements that they present to the public, at least? The balance sheet. I can't hear you. Louder. Income statement. Statement of cash flows. If you think about your standard balance sheet, there are going to be assets, and then there are going to be liabilities. Let me just list some assets. You're going to have a variety of different kinds of hard assets. Okay, so property, plant, and equipment. I'm not actually going down the ledger in the order that it's supposed to. You're going to have a variety of different kinds of hard assets, things that a company can claim as tangible. Okay, you're also going to have a bunch of softer assets that might factor into that. Okay, so the company's brand or goodwill might factor into things. Okay, and on the other side, you're going to have liabilities, obviously the outstanding debts, but you're going to have at the same time, stock compensation depending on how the accounting is being done, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, if you look at some of the things that companies count as assets, though, a lot of it's pretty intangible. Let me give you an example. My kids are 4, 3, and 1. Got all daughters. And they're actually kind of getting into the Disney thing. And I'm pretty wary about this. Because, as we all know, Disney makes its mojo from the princesses that it peddles. And my little girls really want to be princesses. Okay, so does every other little girl who ever comes to my doorstep on Halloween. They all want to be Elsa. No one ever wants to. What's the name of the other one? Anna? Yeah. No one ever wants to be Anna. Don't know why. um, Elsa's got the cool powers, you know? Everybody wants to have powers. But Disney has all these princesses. How much are these princesses worth? Well, the brands are worth a whole lot, right? The power of the Jasmine brand or the Moana, I guess she's not quite as popular a princess as Elsa, but still popular enough. And I'm not up on all the, like, Pocahontas is one, Ariel is one. She's an older princess. They've got all these princesses. How do they put those on a balance sheet? How do you figure how much value is in a brand like that? It's really kind of interpretive, isn't it? Okay, all sorts of intangible assets that companies like Disney count as valuable can end up skewing balance sheets in ways that make things highly subjective. Okay, and in fact, Stewart writes on page 328 in kind of rhetorical terms, first column, the empirical tests to which the theory of managers' choice of accounting procedures has been put show a very high degree of support for this sort of research. It seems to be widely accepted today that managers, far from presenting a true and fair view of their corporation's operations and financial positions, choose those accounting procedures that will maximize their own self-interests. A little further down, this is a powerful sentence, accountants are rapidly becoming guns for hire with no code of honor to give their services adequate direction or justification. Okay, I have known many accountants in my day, and all of them, to my knowledge, have been impeccably honest. But I wonder if there's some selection bias because of my work here at a Christian university. And certainly there are bad apples out there who fulfill that sentence of being guns for hire. At any rate, Stewart is warning us about the dangers of pursuing such a vision of accounting in the face of the interpretive realities of the field. Okay, so that's an interesting article, and I commend it to your attention. Let me stop and ask if there are any questions about that before we take a break and then come back and do a case study. Cool? All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and look at waste management as a case study.